Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Today, I am deeply honored to have Brent Kocal with us. Hi, Brent. Welcome.
Hello.
Yes. Okay. You guys are going to love this interview because I have actually known Brent for maybe 5 or 6 years. We met at a live event, and then I hired him to coach me a few years ago. And he is a master. He is the persuasion hitman. He's a master on client fulfillment, client acquisition, leads, and also repurchasing, getting your clients to continue to work with you after they've completed step one of the journey. So, Brent, welcome. Tell us a little bit about what do you mean by a persuasion hitman?
Well, first of all, it sounds cool because
Mm,
people will typically hire me, companies, individuals will hire me to put together the entire architecture of their marketing plan. So picture all of your customer acquisition efforts like a house. We need a blueprint. We need an architecture for that to make sure that the house stands up the way it is and that the path of travel is exactly what we want it to be, so they see what they need to see when they need to see it.
mm,
And it just, like I said, it sounds cool to say like persuasion hitman,
mhm.
and to put that through this entire process of the architecture, where we end up with is just like this body count of customers, if that's the way that we
Mhm.
want to put the nomenclature on it.
That's cool. I love how you're using exactly what you want to teach us today, which is how to, you're using, hey, it sounds good. So how would you help our listeners articulate their message so it sounds good versus sounding boring? Because right now it's attractive. Hey, I know what it is. I want more. So I think
Mm.
that's one of the first steps. How would you help them really create a soundbite for their messaging to
So
either
I
attract
think
or
the
repel?
first thing with this, when it comes to having a message that's powerful and attractive, is that you can't attempt to copy anybody else. And it's
Mm,
easy to do, right? Because you see other people in the marketplace on whatever platform you see those people on, and you see something that resonates with you. And naturally, your inclination is, if it resonates with people like me, then I'm going to be like that. And then I'll resonate with people. And then what happens is that you go create a whole bunch of content that sounds a lot like somebody else that might be just a little
mhm.
further along the path than you, and your content falls flat and you're wondering why. And what that comes down to is that you were trying to be somebody else versus being what makes you unique. And that's something that I think a lot of people that are in the space of coaching need to realize, is that there is a uniqueness about them that people will actually be attracted to. And
Mhm.
that's the primary thing when it comes to getting a message across. So be yourself. The second thing is to really take a stand.
Yeah.
So there's natural fear in being out there and publishing content, whether that is paid traffic leading to a landing page that's got more content on it, or simply native content. There's fear in the judgment that we'll receive. Because I'm sure that you've
Yeah.
probably put posts out there, I know I have, where there's so many comments and most of them are negative. Like I remember one of my best performing ads of all time was this. I forget what the picture was, but it was just me telling people about the schedule of my day. I wake up at 4:35, I work out at 5 a.m., I'm in the Word at 6 a.m., and just kind of going through my entire day through the whole
Yeah.
thing. And one, I have no idea why it worked, other than all I did was tell the truth about my day.
Right.
But the second portion of it is that the fear of what people are going to comment about this. I want to say there was like 900 or 950 comments on that. And a lot of them were negative about me, which you kind
Mhm.
of have to let that go away, because in my mind, I'm going like, this is working
Right.
because I took a stand. And the
Mhm.
stand in that particular ad was, when you tolerate comfort from yourself, then you're
Mhm.
also accepting mediocrity. And
Yes.
mediocrity is something that people choke on all the time. And so I took a stand, and that in and of itself brought it in. I was myself and I took a stand. So that's
Mhm.
a very basic two-step formula to creating some form of content that is
Mhm.
going to resonate with the right people. A lot of people it won't
Mhm.
resonate with, and that's fine, because that's
Right.
the third piece, which is you've got to talk to somebody specific. You can't
Ooh.
talk to the masses. When you create something, you want to say this works for everybody
Mm-hmm.
because in essence, it could,
Right.
but you'll be more successful, not just in your messaging, but in getting people to want to be a part of what you're doing if
Mm-hmm.
you're super specific in who that is.
So
And
when you
that's
do
another deal.
that, do
Yep.
you talk to yourself, like the your highest level self, or do you talk to who you were in the past? How do you help someone specifically target one person to speak to?
It depends on the product that we're building and
Mhm.
who we think would most benefit from that product. And we talk to
Mhm.
that specific person. Sometimes, if it's me and it's one of my products that I'm building, I will typically be talking to me 5 years ago
Okay.
because that's who I feel most aligned to help with. And there's
Yeah.
a number of things that you got to think about with that. You got to think about like their path of travel to get to where they are at the moment that they're going to collide with my message.
Mhm.
But then I also need to think about what are the things that they really want and what are the things that they're really thinking about.
Mhm.
It's, the I don't know how old it is, but I'm sure that you've heard before. It's like you want to enter the conversation they're already having in their heads.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if you can think about the things that they are genuinely jealous about and
Mhm.
have shame about, because those are the two primary like emotions or feelings that we don't really tell anybody about. If we can
Good.
nail those, then they come right in because that's where I've found that the message resonates most often, especially if we're talking about some form of personal development.
Jealousy and fear or failure.
Jealousy and shame.
Jealousy and shame.
Yep.
That
So,
they're,
for
oh, that's
example,
good.
right?
Yeah.
For example, there was a time when I was running a product, and the product was catered exclusively to men who owned companies that did between $2 million and $5 million a year in sales. And they felt as though that company was trapping them from being able to earn what they should really earn. And I dug into this, and one of their things of jealousy was they would see people in the real world, in their immediate circles, who they believed weren't as smart as them, weren't as motivated as them, but somehow figured out how to have a way better car and a way nicer house than they did. And that created jealousy. And so when I said that, that's where the shift occurred. And the way that I know that the shift occurred is because when people bought that product, I would ask them, hey, what was the moment you decided to buy?
Mm-hmm.
Which is a really valuable thing to ask when people are coming into buying whatever you have, because that's a breadcrumb that tells you what to do more of in your marketing. So what was it
Mm-hmm.
that got you to buy? And they're like, man, when you were talking about the guy who was not as smart as me and not as motivated as me, that was driving a $500,000 McLaren, that got me. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's what I mean by find the jealousy that somebody
Right.
has. The shame is the
Right.
stuff that they're not talking to anybody about, maybe not even their spouse. And if you can
Mm-hmm.
get into those two things, they feel like, okay, this person understands my struggle. And if you
Right.
know that if they know that you understand their struggle at like a really deep personal level, then
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing is you're just instilling trust. They haven't been persuaded to do anything yet,
Mm-hmm.
but
Instill
you're
trust.
instilling trust because you can't persuade somebody who doesn't trust you.
Mm-hmm. True. So really getting into their head. Now, how did you come to that conclusion that they were jealous of the guy who wasn't as smart as them and had a nicer car? Was
Oh, I
that
might have
you?
had an experience like that
Oh,
myself.
okay, that
So
was
no,
you.
I was sitting at dinner at this golf club that we were members of, and there was another guy there, and this is a guy who had like all sorts of crazy stuff, and he had like, I think like a Lamborghini and a McLaren, and he was talking about this business that he was starting, and I was asking him these what felt to me like basic questions about like
Mm-hmm.
what type of entity did he set up, what type of like what platform were they using on marketing, were they using display ads, were they using YouTube ads, like what were they doing? And his answer to it was essentially like, I have no idea. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought to myself in that moment, what does this guy know that I don't know?
Right.
And so I got super jealous.
Yep.
And that particular product was talking to who I was 5 years ago. And
Hmm.
that's how that went. So anyway, yeah,
That's
that's how I
good.
came up with that.
So put yourself in jealous situations. Like I don't get jealous that much. There was one time I'll just share. I was jealous. I was living in Hawaii for the summer. And I'm like, I'm living my dream. I'm over here with my kids, my husband, we're living the dream until this family rolls up and they were from your part of the world, from California, and they were lawyers and they had a nanny. And they were like frolicking around the beaches, like holding hands, dating, having their best romantic time together. And I was so jealous because I was sitting there with my kids stressed out, a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old and my husband, and it was horrible. I mean, isn't that sad? But then you kind of feel guilty because you should be really happy, right? So for women, it could be shame, but also jealous, but then guilt because you think you should just be happy. And which brings you to the mediocre part,
Hmm.
like settling for mediocrity.
Exactly. Right. And like I use the term
Hmm.
choking on mediocrity because
Hmm.
it's more visceral. When we use descriptive language like that, we want to have somebody have a very clear picture in their mind of what we're trying to communicate. And the more visceral the language you can use, the better. So there's acceptance of mediocrity, which that doesn't sound so bad. Hey, I'm
Right.
just going to accept this versus choking on mediocrity. How does that sit with you? You're sitting there going like, that sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Like I don't want that. I can't. That's
No.
choking is not an acceptable answer, and it also speaks to how the person is feeling.
Hmm.
And in
Right.
some way, shape, or form, we've all accepted mediocrity at the beginning,
Hmm.
and we tell ourselves it's not a big deal. Then we start choking, and we
Right.
start to resent the things that we have because we now view those things as mediocre.
Right. It's good. Okay. War on mediocrity right here. So
Yep.
tell us a little bit more about how we can use persuasion to have really call in these ideal clients through our speaking and creating from our words to our wealth.
Okay. So frame that with a little bit of context. Are we talking about if you're standing on a stage? Are we talking about if you're talking into a camera? What stage of the interaction do you think would most benefit the people who are listening to this?
So I think a lot of people right now, they are speaking, they're doing lives, they're doing videos, they might even have some time on stage, but they're not converting the level that they know they're capable of.
Mm,
So how would you help them turn their words to wealth?
okay.
And or we could even reframe it this way. What are the mistakes, the common mistakes that you see that cause people from not allowing them to attract the right people?
Okay. And then your people are looking to speak from stage and attract coaching clients? Is that the
Yes.
general
Yeah.
rub? Okay. So, the I think one big mistake that people that are I don't know if it's relatively new, if it's just relegated to those people, or if it permeates into a deeper cross section of all coaches. But you have to make the first sale first. And the first sale is selling yourself on your solution and knowing that your solution works, which a lot of people you can tell that there is a lack of certainty that their solution is going to work. And you can
Mm-hmm.
feel it. You can't see it. You can produce a
Mm-hmm.
technically on point video. You can deliver it smoothly. You can deliver it authentically. You can put all the components that somebody says, hey, if you add these 5 things into your
Mm-hmm.
video, it's going to be a great video. You can add all those through. But if you don't have certainty, it doesn't have soul. And if it doesn't have soul, nobody's going to feel it. So you
Right.
have to sell yourself on your solution. I remember speaking on a stage in Nashville last November, and I was talking specifically to mental performance coaches, which I didn't know what that was, but it's
Mm-hmm.
something in the athletic space. Every major league team has one, all the professional organizations have one. And we're talking about the context of sales as in the confidence to really get somebody into a serious conversation about working with you and engaging. And the analogy that I used, I started out in the room and I had everybody raise your hand if what you do works. And of course, everybody raised their hand.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, so it is now your duty every time you're in front of a prospect to make sure that they work with you and take the next step. If you don't do that, it is no different than having a suicidal person across from you and you handing them a loaded gun.
It's your
That's the severity with which you have to
wow.
believe in your solution. Because when you believe in your solution at that level, using that analogy, you're convicted.
It's
And
good.
upon that conviction, you have certainty. And when you have certainty, you have soul. And when you have soul, people feel it.
Mm.
Okay? That is the first thing that people do when they make mistakes. So the other thing too is that
Good.
if people are selling coaching services, they need to be buying coaching services,
Yep.
because we can't sell stuff when we're like, they're like, do you have a coach? And you're like, nah. It's like, then why would I buy from you?
Right.
So you have to invest in yourself the way that you're asking people to invest in themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a big deal. When it comes to the video and getting the video to engage, what I found for myself over making a lot of my own mistakes was I wasn't testing enough different ways of going about it. I would test 2 or 3, maybe 5 things at most, and then I'd get frustrated and say like, okay, well that didn't work. I'm going to try an entirely different thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is that we have no idea what our ideal customers are going to resonate with. We simply don't. I can come up with the best hook for a script, for a video script, or I can come up with the best call to action for it, and it may not work because I don't get a vote.
Mm-hmm.
The marketplace votes. And
Right.
so recognizing that the marketplace votes, whatever amount of testing you think you need to do, quadruple it.
Wow.
And that is likely the number of things you need to test. And we test different things at different levels. We test our
Right.
hooks to see, all right, how many times can I get somebody, or how long can I get somebody to watch what I'm doing? That tells me my hook is good. How many people went from what I posted to a landing page that I wanted? That tells me my call to action was good. And I constantly have metrics that are telling me like this worked or this
Mm-hmm.
didn't work. And that's another thing where people screw up.
Right.
It's not magic, it's math.
Yep. It's
The
good.
data is what makes you money. It's the least sexy thing. Nobody wants to talk about it. People want to talk about like their analogies. They want to talk about their
Mm-hmm.
hooks. They want to talk about all of this visceral language that we can use when we're communicating to our prospects. Nobody wants to look at the back end because it's not sexy. It's not fun, which I totally get, right? It
Yeah.
sucks. It's like going back to high school and having to be in math
Mm-hmm.
class. But math class is where you make the money. Understanding the through line of, all right, I got somebody to watch this for 15 seconds, which is an eternity in social media language.
Right.
Then I got them to go to this page. Then I got them to take this action. Then I got them to take the following action and the following action. And the whole thing is just about figuring out what performs, because
Mm-hmm.
you don't get to vote on your messages or your product. I don't get to vote on my messages or my product. None of the people listening to do this get to do that either, which by the way means that they don't need to sit around waiting for it to be perfect,
Mm-hmm.
because perfect to them is completely irrelevant to
Mm-hmm.
selling what they have.
Right. So good. It's a, what do they say? It's a guess until it's a test. It's a guess until it's a test. So it's a guess until it's a test. You have to test everything. And
Yeah.
all the details matter. And I love what you're saying about math, because you really helped me with the math. You were like, no, this is doing really well, Amanda. Keep doing it. So that was so good, guys. Don't be afraid of math.
Well,
Then,
and let me
yeah.
let me add one more point on that, and then we'll get to your next question. Is the math takes the feeling out of it. Because
Mhm.
one of the most frustrating things for having an online business is to feel like it's not working and you don't know why. And even with the amount of metrics that I track, there's still times where I felt like it wasn't working and I felt so low.
Mhm.
And I'm like, what's going on? Why is this not working? And when you go to the math, it removes that, because there's a feeling that, and that's the hardest thing about online marketing, is that when you're forward, when a camera's in your face, or when you're on a stage, there's a feeling that has to vibrate through.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're on the back end figuring out what works and what doesn't work, that's when you simply need to go into Terminator mode and look at all the numbers, and the numbers will strip away the feeling. Because you can just get off of a video and you'd be like, that was the best video I ever did. That's your feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Take a look at the math and it'll take that away. Or, man, I felt like that was terrible. Man, I got another like 10 comments of people who say that they don't like my ears, or that my beard is
Mm-hmm.
gray and I need to shave it. And then I look at the numbers and I'm like, oh, that worked. So
Mm-hmm.
it again, it's not a sexy thing, but to feel right with yourself and to continue going. Because there were a lot of times that if I only went on my feelings, I would have quit big time.
Right.
So
Yes.
much. So then I just looked at the math and go like, oh, no, wait, it's working. Okay, cool. Or
Okay.
it's not working, and now I understand why.
Mm-hmm.
That's
So
where that's where the commas are in online marketing, is it's not
yes.
working and I know exactly where. So now I know where to test. There's one thing about it's a guess, then it's a test, or it's a guess until it's a test, which that's the
Mm-hmm.
first time I heard that. That was awesome.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between that and knowing where to test.
Right.
And the only way you're going to know where to test is by watching the metrics.
And so you have to have those benchmarks and those KPIs that you're tracking. Now, do you do tracking daily or weekly, would you suggest?
Yeah, it depends on your ad spend. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the highest that I've been able to get myself to, and it's a belief thing, I've gotten to 60,000 a month on ads. So what's that, like
Good.
2 grand a day? And when I was doing that, I was tracking every single day.
Right.
If I'm running $5,000 a month on ads, I'm not tracking every day, because here's the difference with that, is that you want to make decisions with a good sample size of data. If you
Mm-hmm.
just try to, if you try, we're spending 5,000 a month and you were looking at it every day, you're not going to get 1,500 to 2,000 people to a landing page in a day. So you're not going to be able to make any decisions on it anyway. I was looking at it every day when I was
Mm-hmm.
rolling 60K a month, because I was getting, I want to say like 2,500 landing page views a day. So I could
Yep.
tell really quick what
Mm-hmm.
wasn't working and what needed a test. So that's how to
So
gauge that, is
you
how much your
work your
ad
way
spend.
up to that. All right. So let's talk about one of the things that you mentioned is once you have these clients, now what about client re-enrollment?
Mm-hmm.
How do
Yeah.
we do that? How do we master that?
Okay, so the first thing, and one of the things that I've found, is that people make their decision to repurchase very quickly after they make their initial purchase decision.
Mm,
So what are we doing to welcome them into the community, or welcome them on the journey when they first sign up? Are they receiving something physical in the mail, or are they getting a special text message video that's directly from your real phone? It's like, hey, Amanda, welcome to the program. I'm so excited to be working with you. That in and of itself will shift their perspective on, am I going to buy from this person again? Could be physical, could be digital, it doesn't make a difference, but how am I welcoming this person in? Then once we've got that, we need to start thinking on day one how we are going to get them to, like, what's their next step?
mhm.
Because we teach in segments. Everything you teach is in segments, right? It's like, you, I'm sure, have like, well, here's how to book stages. Okay,
Mhm.
then when you get to the stage, here's how to frame your talk. And then here's how to frame your offer inside the talk. And then here's what to do in your offer after the talk, or some iteration of
Right.
that, I would imagine.
I do.
And okay, perfect. So in that, we need to start talking at the beginning about what the entire journey looks like, and show people what the stage of the journey they're on right now. So the best way that I
Mhm.
figured out how to do that was I created a map of a client journey, and
Okay.
I had it with the art department, and they put it like on this mountain, so it looked like you were climbing a mountain.
Oh, cool.
And I would show people like, hey, this is where you are right now, and this is where you're going. And so the more we can give them vision, because I think a lot of people struggle with where am I going? Like what do I want?
Mm-hmm.
I'm convinced that's why most people wake up in their late 30s and early 40s and think like I didn't think my life was going to turn out like this.
Right.
And for the majority of us, one, it's hard. If somebody asks you what you want, it's a blank check. And so it's really difficult to come up with an answer. Like you think you
Mm-hmm.
know, but then if somebody really asks you, you're like, I don't know. Like I've got a
Mm-hmm.
general idea, but I'm not specific about it. So
Mm-hmm.
that means that they lack vision because we're so busy. Like think about our day-to-day lives between like our kids and our marriages and our businesses and trying to just like do everything we can for ourselves. It's really hard to
Mm-hmm.
create a vision for yourself for the future. So that's a golden opportunity when a coach steps in to help shape what the vision looks like. And if you've got a journey, you can show them the ultimate throughput of the vision. And when they've got the ultimate throughput of the vision, then you can sell them the next thing. Because I had
Mm-hmm.
this epiphany when, especially when I was running all that ad spend towards traffic,
Mm-hmm.
was I was so focused on getting people in and getting people to become paying clients that it did not yet occur to me that, well, wait, what's next?
Right.
And then somebody asked me a question like, well, what would your business look like if everybody who had bought from you once was still buying from you today?
Oof.
And that's one of those like break your brain questions because I'm going
Yes.
like, well, wait a second. You mean I've already paid for the cost of customer acquisition? So I don't have to do
Mm-hmm.
that anymore because depending on the ticket that you're selling, it's a significant portion of
Huge.
acquisition costs, right? It's huge. And so if you've already got over that hurdle, everything past that is pure profit. And then I start going like, okay, oh man, this would be
Mm-hmm.
huge if everybody who bought had continued to buy. So that's the fundamental
Yes.
question to ask yourself is what would need to be true to have every customer who buys from me today to continue buying from me for at least the next 5 years? What would I need to create? What would be the elevation of mastery? I had a client in here yesterday
That's
and we were
good.
working on it's a coaching program to an app in the golf space. And what we're trying to figure out is how to ascend people quickly. And the way to ascend them quickly is to help them feel momentum and get
Mm-hmm.
quick wins. And so
Yes.
we defined his niche and his avatar to golf players that are between 15 and 25 handicap, which means that you suck. And that's the
Okay.
right niche for
Oh.
this product. In 30 days, they're going to get momentum and then they're going to be led to a higher tier ticket. And once they
Mm-hmm.
get on that higher tier ticket, then they're going to be sold into an app, which is
That's
going to
good.
be building up his MRR, monthly recurring
Mm-hmm.
revenue, which means that,
Right.
hey, this is the path to really creating wealth is to get people to buy from you continually. But you have to
Right.
have a process in place that allows them to keep buying to you. And the best way to do that is just keep on thinking like, well, what's an even better result than they're getting in the first half? And
Mm-hmm.
then once you've got that, well, what's an even better result than that? What are the new problems that they are going to face? So, like for your business, you get people in and you teach them how to get on stages, you teach them how to crush it on stages, you teach them how to have a product on the back end of the stage. And so they've got all these really cool things in business coming. One of the next logical challenges that I can think of is that if my business is doing that, I'm going to need to hire a team to start doing some of these things
Mm-hmm.
because I can't do them all myself anymore. So my next problem is how do I convert this knowledge that I have over here into managing a team because it's an entirely different skill set. So
Right.
then that could be an ascension. It's like, all right, well, here we created this business for you. Now we need to teach you how to operate this business. Then what do we need to teach you how to do? We need to teach you how to separate yourself from the business so you don't have to work in it every day.
Mm-hmm.
And we just keep on going to every new level of problem because as a coach, what you're really doing is you're creating better problems for somebody to have. Because right
Right.
now people come to you and they're like, I don't have a stage. I don't have a course. Like I don't have anything. I know that I want to create wealth. I know that I feel like I've got this message. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
No problem. Arm
Yeah.
around them. Let me show you the way. What
Yeah.
you're doing though is you're creating a new problem. You're saying like, okay, well, you're going to have a tax problem now because you're
Yeah.
never made as much money as you're going to make once you do the things that I tell you how to do. Well,
Right.
We can't just leave them there to solve that on their own. We need to help them, whether that's an affiliate deal between you and somebody else, or whether that's
Mm-hmm.
something you've figured out and you can help them with. And once they've got that, then what's the next problem that you've created? Oh man, I
Mm-hmm.
created a problem where like I got all this business, but now I don't have any time. Oh, well, hey, no stress. Let's show you how to automate 90% of the stuff that you're doing right now.
That's good.
That's what
Really
that's,
giving that thought.
yeah, really think through
Mm-hmm.
not just what am I going to get them to buy today? Think through
Huge.
what am I going to get people to buy 12 months from now that have already
Long,
bought from
long
me.
game.
Yep.
I have been in so many masterminds over the years where they didn't have a continuity after I finished. And
Mm-hmm.
it leaves the client kind of like empty because they don't know where to go next. They've gotten to the pinnacle, but they need more. So this is very instrumental in helping you go and serve at a higher level. So you are such a great resource. Tell us how we can continue to follow you, work with you, learn from you. I know you have podcasts, you have a lot going on as well.
I do. I do have a podcast. It's called the Everyday Discipline Podcast. I put that out once a week. It's on every platform. If you want
Okay.
to listen to that, we talk primarily about business stuff in that, mostly the stuff that we've been talking about here. So lead generation, customer acquisition, fulfillment, and throughput on the sell. So there's that aspect of it. I'm most active on LinkedIn out of all my things. You can
Mhm.
find me there, Brent Kocal, Kocal on that. Like I downloaded Instagram again. I'd gotten off of it for a really long time. And
Yep.
so I'll put a couple videos on there a week. But don't expect me to respond to a DM because I've got a 1 minute limit set up on my security settings for that. So I only get 1 minute a day.
Oh
So
my
you can,
gosh.
yeah, so you can find me there. And then best website to find me on is just my name, brentkocal.com. And that's getting
Perfect.
revamped right now. I think it'll be live again in like a week and a half.
Well, congrats. Well,
Yeah,
thank you,
thank you.
Brent. This is so helpful. I got a lot of gems on that I'm going to even work on in terms of going and exposing my jealousy and my shame moments and speaking to that, and as well as really working through that client journey. And I love how you have a visual of the mountain and, putting your arm around the clients and showing them where to go. So it's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I will see you in the next video, and thanks for watching. Bye.